I was watching Angelikatosh's video on the censorship in Oblivion, and I'd like to expand on it. She was talking about how in Oblivion Remastered, they censored a whole lot of the female armors, the female clothing, and even the statues themselves. But I'd like to expand on that a little bit and talk about how it wasn't just the female characters that they censored, and I'd like to add on why I think that is. So I don't think they're just censoring the female characters, but they actually reduce the differences between both the men and the women. It's not just that we're seeing less cleavage from the women, and it's not just that we're seeing the women look more male in their, armor or their clothing or whatever. It's that we're seeing the key, essential differences between men and women being reduced. Look at this statue of a man. When I first saw it, it immediately struck me as being odd, off. It looks wrong. Like, his form is spindly and small. It's lacking a kind of power to it, even though he looks like he's in this powerful stance. But he really doesn't look like a man. It's kind of strange, like his face looks old, but his body looks more like a young boy's body. It's not a man's body, and it's not just muscles. It's the whole strength of his form. It's very off looking to me. It's almost disturbing. I think it kind of hits that uncanny valley note to me. So it's not that I'm expecting the statue to be, this exaggerated form like Conan. It's not that the statue is normal looking and I'm expecting it to be enhanced. It's that it's minimized in all the essential male attributes. It doesn't look like a man. In other words, in the same way that the female forms are minimized in all of their female attributes. It's not just their cleavage size, or certain armors or clothing being revealing in a pleasant or tasteful way. It's that their whole form and presence is very unfeminine. It's not light and flowing and smooth in a way a woman's form is, and the way that a woman's form moves. And you can argue that it was like this in the original, and I would agree to a certain extent. I think that this is not a new problem. This is kind of really an old problem. I think it's just gotten worse, more exaggerated. I think a great comparison is with Eastern games. The East doesn't have this problem, at least not in the way that we do in the West. I think a lot of gamers are pointing this out. I think everything that Angelikatosh says about the female characters is definitely right, but I just don't think it's limited to the female characters. She brings up something interesting, though, about the Zivili, if that's how you pronounce it, as being muscular, which is true. He looks like a muscular, ripped guy. But notice that it's really only true for the evil Daedra. It's only, the muscular form for the evil, aggressive, destructive character. Whereas for a good character, which this statue is supposed to be, he's supposed to be this heroic, I can't remember which character he's supposed to be, but he's some character in the lore that is, supposed to be venerated and a good character. But the good characters are not muscular. It's the destructive, evil ones that are presented with a more exaggerated masculine look. I think the most important part of this, that's going to lead to my ultimate point, is that they removed the recognition of men and women from the game entirely. I think the underlying problem is just that people have become so uncomfortable with the human form, and any kind of acknowledgement of the facts, the actual facts of what it means to be a human is being wiped away. It's not okay to depict a male character as being strong and masculine and heroic, and that being a good thing. It's okay if it's an evil Daedra, but we don't see that in a lot of the male characters, even young male characters in real life movies and TV shows and stuff. We don't see masculine characters. We see these sort of kind of effeminate boys. I don't think most people are doing this consciously. I'm sure that some of it's conscious. In fact, we know this when it comes to the uglification of women in video games. There's actual guides for video game developers to follow to like add in man jaws to female characters and make them more, well, ugly. Just make them not look like women. So to a certain extent, it is intentional and it is conscious, but I think a lot of what we see, particularly with the male characters, I don't think that it's necessarily conscious. I mean, think of this. We've all grown up in a world that treats the recognition of the human form, particularly acknowledging the differences, the essential factual differences between men and women, as wrong. Seeing a woman in a sexual way and seeing her as being attractive is seen as, oh, that's sexualizing her, and that's wrong. Seeing a man as being physically capable, oh, that's misogynistic, because of course women are capable too, aren't they? So it's just burned into everyone's mind that we're all the same. Humanity is just one great gray blob, and if you represent any human as anything other than just the same gray blob, then that's wrong. What I find interesting is that a lot of young victims of sexual assault will report how shocked they were to realize just how much faster, stronger, and physically capable the male assailant was, which the fact was inescapable. But they didn't know this. It wasn't obvious. The acknowledgement of this fact is just not in people's mind anymore. It's been so repressed. And what I think is interesting is it's typically seen as okay to acknowledge that men are physically more capable than women, so long as it's in a negative context. So long as we say that, oh, men are a threat to women. You know, they commit crimes, and that's bad. But if you acknowledge it like, okay, well, this is just a physical capability, it doesn't inherently imply evil. It can be used for evil ends, but that's down to the choices that the man is making. That's not inherent in physical capability. You could use this physical capability for something good, but the second you mention that, then people say, whoa, that's sexist because women are capable and don't need men, which I think you can see that kind of thinking going on in the Zivilai, or however you pronounce it. You know, that's an evil creature, and so it's okay to portray him as being this buff, badass looking dude, but no, you can't have a good male character looking like that because the male form is just synonymous with evil. You know, we've all been raised to believe that everyone was sexually repressed in the past. You know, the Victorians were repressed, and, you know, that's definitely true. I'm not going to argue that they weren't sexually repressed, but I think it's totally wrong to say that we live in a culture that isn't sexually repressed. I think, in a way, we live in one of the most sexually repressed cultures of all history. It's not that we repress things like showing parts of our body in the way that they did in the past. It's much, much deeper than that. It's that we repress any identification or recognition of the differences between men and women. In other words, we repress acknowledging men and women at all, which I think is a much more wicked form of repression, because this form of repression doesn't stop your actions. It doesn't stop you from going out and having as much sex as you want or showing off as much of your body as you want. What it kills is any ability to find anything special in any of it. Because if you can't recognize the differences between men and women, particularly in a positive context, it makes anything that you do not special. And I think that's really what the modern culture is all about. Everything around us is designed to make what we do feel unspecial. No matter what we do, no matter what we achieve, nothing we do feels special anymore. And I think that's ultimately the design of modern philosophy, really. And I think, you know, feminism and all the other forms of attack on acknowledging sexual identity between men and women it's designed to kill any kind of sense of specialness in the recognition of those two things. It's one of the biggest reasons why dating has gotten so uncomfortable for most people. We're all so uncomfortable with the whole topic of sex and the interactions between men and women that most people are just electing to not engage with it at all. Well, I hope this video has been interesting to you. If you've liked it, drop a like. If you want to see more like it, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.